Okay, so thank you all for coming tonight in this dreary, rainy afternoon. But Tanya Triplett and I met Joe Hines on several occasions at economic development meetings, and we were interested in having Joe come to Abingdon and Washington County and taking a look at what we're doing and give us some pointers on what he thinks are opportunities in the future. So without further ado, Joe Hines with the Timmons Group.
Thank you, Kathy. I was going to say, y'all supposed to clap. No. I'm live. You're good on recording me at this point in time? We're officially on Facebook? Okay. So if you can't hear me in the back row, look me up on Facebook, and you should be able to hear me. Hi, my name is Joe Hines, as Kathy mentioned. I did a presentation at the Virginia Industrial Development Authority's Institute back in May, and that was where we had a discussion about coming out here and taking a look at the region and the area. I had the benefit of working on the Southwest Virginia Advanced Manufacturing Center site analysis and workforce study in 2013 with the Shamira team, and that was really my first kind of peek behind the curtain on what was going on in the region and the area. We also have done work for Virginia Coalfields in terms of identifying sites. So we have some familiarity with what is going on down here from a coal industry perspective, what's happening from an economic development perspective, and really, you know, you're still faced with a lot of the same challenges that like Southside Virginia was faced with when they lost tobacco, textiles, and the furniture industry. You know, you have to kind of embrace what the reality of your situation is. Look at your assets and your strengths and your weaknesses, and you have to move forward from there. The one thing that I found that is really good about being from Southside Virginia, which is where I'm from, is people are resilient in localities and regions like this. You know, very blue collar approach. You know, we're going to do what it takes to get the job done. We're going to do what it takes to be successful, and I think that really comes through over time. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview on Timmons Group and my background in particular. Kind of do a little bit of an economic development 101, some of the trends that we're seeing. Basics about site selection, site preparedness, what I view as your regional assets, and then what things can be done to continue to move and build forward. I do want to mention a couple people, both Tanya and Kathy, for spending some time with me. I just got to spend some time with Jason as well. Whitney and I go back a number of years. She has some Farmville connections. I say there are 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon and there are 2 degrees of Farmville, Virginia. I can't go anywhere in the world without running somebody with a Farmville connection. But you're going to see some overarching themes. One is the need for speed in the economic development market. That becomes very obvious when you look at some of the data I show you. 2, a little bit about the uniqueness of your town and regional assets and how that's important to economic development. You know, you're also seeing a nationwide trend in the shrinking of rural America. And with that, there are also some communities that are actually going through a little bit of a rebirth, small town communities. So hopefully that's a trend that's happening for a short term, but it's a natural trend that we're going to have to fight as a general rule. And then hopefully it will reverse itself over the next few years as time goes on. Small towns can be a major driver and catalyst for economic development because they serve as cultural centers for a larger regional economic base and growth. I look at Farmville, Virginia, where I'm from, and that serves as a hub for 6 counties from a commerce perspective. And so it's important to recognize the value of a small town and community and how that can help be a catalyst for your growth. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get into the presentation. A little bit about Timmons Group. We were founded in 1953. We, at this point in time, I think are about 530 employees. We have about 100 GI specialists and Esri business partner for over 15 years. We're headquartered in Chesterfield, Virginia, 8 offices located throughout the region. We've consistently been a top 25 or top 500 design firm for the past 25 years, and we have pretty extensive experience working in this field. We've done work in 45 states in the last 3 years. So we do have what we think is a pretty good feel for what goes on in the rest of the country. In particular, I focus our economic development practice in the Southeast. And we try to understand some of those trends so we can help our clients be more successful moving forward. As I mentioned, we did the Virginia Coalfield site selection study. We rolled that out in 2016, and then we did the Advanced Manufacturing Training Center feasibility study for this region in 2013. So a little bit about my background, other than Kathy saying that I'm credentialed here to come do this. But I did grow up in a small town, Farmville, Prince Edward County area. Community very similar to Washington Avenue. And one of the recommendations I've had for both Kathy and Tanya is I think it would be helpful if y'all come to visit Farmville and see what's going on there, because there's been a lot of positive things that have transpired over the past 2 or 3 years. And I think there may be some lessons learned that if y'all spend some time with the officials there, that you can kind of see their approach to how they're going about redeveloping the town and the communities. I am a professional engineer by training. I also have a business degree. I have 27 years in doing this. My dad was a volunteer economic development person in Prince Edward County in the early 1980s. He helped land a couple of jobs. I was around 15, 16 years old, a couple of companies, but what that meant for me was my best friend did not have to move because his dad was able to get a job at that new business that came into town. And so that's kind of where I became hooked and passionate about economic development and what that can do to help literally change the fabric of communities. Served on a couple different boards, one I've started doing with Whitney, and she has been an absolute pleasure to work with. So why is economic development important? I don't want to preach to the choir here, but I think it's important to point these things out. It's about creating jobs, creating investment, creating wealth, creating happy families. It's been interesting because there's been studies that have been shown that when the economy is going well and people have jobs, domestic violence drops, drug abuse drops. There are a number of different things societally that happens that are positive when you have a good economic development program or good economic development going on. It helps for funding of schools, funding of your community assets such as parks, and funding key social programs. So where can it ultimately lead us? This is a picture of us doing a master plan for Prince George County in 2006. Okay, we did this master plan. We had no idea that Rolls-Royce was looking for a potential site. All right, this was August 2006. Rolls-Royce shows up on the doorstep of the locality in January of 2007, and roughly 9 months later, we were announcing the deal for a $500 million facility, 500 jobs created. It became Tim Kaine's kind of signature economic development deal when he was in office. But one thing became very clear. Everybody needed to work together to make that project happen. Okay, economic development is very clearly a team game that everybody needs to come ready to play, and you need to come ready to win, or else the prospect will potentially move on elsewhere. So from a big picture consultant perspective, prospects and consultants really are looking at regions. They're not looking at sites or localities to start off with. Projects now move in months. When my dad was doing it, it was an 18 to 36 month lead time for procuring a project. Now that literally has gotten down to as short as 2 or 3 months at a time. Whitney was supposed to meet with us the other day, but she was busy putting a response to an RFP together, which had about a 48-hour turnaround on that, give or take, not even. And we're seeing that's an indicative trend within the industry. Speed to market matters, ready to go sites matter, as well as publicly controlled sites rule. When you enter the dynamic of a private landowner into an economic development deal, it's not that the private landowners have issues as far as the deal is concerned. It's just sometimes to get issues resolved, it takes time, and you factor into another player into that situation that maybe is not as easy or desirable to work with as a company would like. The internet and data has transformed this process. 90% of that site search is done. They know logistically where they want to go. They know logistically where they want to serve. They know where their workforce potential capacities are. So by the time Whitney gets a phone call, that means they're serious about locating there, and they're taking a serious look at it. Now at that point in time, you're probably still one of 10 or 20, so you have to recognize what your odds are moving forward, but the reality is, once you get that phone call, they are fairly serious about looking at your locality. What it comes down to in my mind is really 100% of your success is about 70 to 80% out of your control. So you need to be able to control that 20 or 30%. You don't know why somebody's going to make a decision in the back of their mind to go to someplace else. And this was illustrated with the most recent announcement of Toyota. Akio Toyota made a decision to go to Alabama, where his Toyota North America team had recommended Greensboro, North Carolina. So it's interesting how those dynamics work in the back of somebody's minds. So there are two ways to think about it. I call it pre-prospect planning and post-prospect execution. And you can think about it like getting ready for a football game or a basketball game. Everything you're doing until the prospect shows up is kind of game time prep. It's practice during the week. It's understanding game time strategy. It's understanding your sites, your infrastructure, your community. But then when the prospect shows up, the clock is on, okay? You have a defined timeline. Decisions are going to be made in a relatively short time frame. You need to be ready to execute, and you need to be ready to understand game time strategy and understand the importance of responsiveness within that market. So we talk a little bit about what BEDP is looking for and their perspective. Roughly 60% of the inquiries that come in are looking for an existing building to go into. 70,000 square foot is a median size, about 100,000 square foot is your average size. We've had a lack of 100 acre plus acre ready to go sites. That's what started the Virginia Business Ready Sites program. And we really are lacking a lot of spec space out there. I just saw a publication where they said investment in a shell building can usually land 2 or 3 prospects, because usually people come and look at the shell building and then they'll maybe take down a site elsewhere. But usually there's a 2 to 3 multiplier, because you're getting the prospect activity because people want to see the building first to come to your locality. So that's data that I think you just need to keep in mind moving forward. Something else that we work on is the site selection magazine's top criteria. And what was interesting, in 2012, local economic development strategy popped into this for the first time ever. We've been tracking this for about 10 years, but what are the decisions that are essentially driving where a prospect locates? And a lot of it goes with access to markets. So transportation infrastructure, utility infrastructure, land building prices, ease of permitting, local economic development strategy, and availability of those incentives. A lot of those things you can control on your local level moving forward. The 2016 version of this is the big jump was workforce skills went from number 6 to number 1, but a lot of the same things stay in place. So we know those are realities of that site selection market. So why do you need to be prospect ready? Caterpillar made a decision to leave Japan in early November. They went and hired a site selection consultant, a gentleman named Mike Mullis out of Tennessee, the week of Thanksgiving. He literally was visiting sites the first week in December. He said, we're going to break ground in March and we're going to make an announcement in February. We need a 200 acre, not pad ready, but a site that was cleared from an environmental perspective. We had one in Southampton County, 238 acres. Virginia Port Authority had played a major role in trying to land this prospect. And they basically ended up meeting that schedule. Southampton County had a site visitor on Monday. They had a prospect in queue already who took down the site literally Thursday night, called me on Friday morning and said, Joe, we have to take the site off the table. I'm like, is there any way you can buy some time with this? And he was like, no, I got a new board. They won't take a bird in hand versus the one in the bush. But we found out that afternoon we were finalists for that site. State called me up and said, Joe, can you find one other site that can work? And so we went through our inventory of large sites. I called the state back and said, yes, I've got one site that will work. You need to call the governor's office and tell them to call off the Amazon deal, because Amazon was in the process of getting their engineering plans finalized, getting ready to make an announcement within 2 weeks of locating in Chesterfield County, Virginia. So prospects won, okay? Amazon located 2 1 million square foot facilities, Dinwiddie and Chesterfield County, Virginia. As you can see, they're popping up all over the place right now. His business, Jeff Bezos' business model, is a 2-hour delivery business model now. That's what he's working towards, as well as all the technology components. But what I thought was fascinating about this was when the Virginia localities went to visit with Amazon Seattle, each one of them got 15 minutes with the executives of Amazon. And having gone through business school, we would take these 30 to 50 page case studies and condense them down to a 2-page executive summary with a couple of sheets of data to back it up. And they drove in their head, they said, you know, most business decisions are made based upon a 10 or 15 minute PowerPoint. If the executives don't like the data or don't like the results or think you need to do additional analysis, they'll send you away and you'll come back again after you do additional analysis. But that's about how much time an executive spends making a decision. So you need to make sure when you're in front of those executives, you're squared away, you've got your analysis done, you understand exactly what's going on and how to sell your community in that fashion. So what is the data that supports this timeline? These are the times from the time a Whitney is called or a Tanya is called to help close the deal, from the time they're called until the deal has been closed. I was on the daily phone calls for the North Carolina team for the Toyota Mazda pursuit last year. We thought that deal was coming to North Carolina. That decision was $1.6 billion plant, 4,000 jobs made in less than 5 months. And they stuck to their schedule. They hired their site selection consultant, and less than 5 months later, they made an announcement like they said they were going to. And the craziness was unreal. We pulled off a 1,900-acre Alta survey in 18 calendar days to try to respond to this client. So literally, I'm on the phone with attorneys at 10:30 at night. We're going through the 300 exceptions on it. We're trying to get all this turned around, but that's the level of responsiveness that these companies have grown to expect in the site selection world. And those 9 projects, an average of 5 months, represent $5 billion in investment and over 14,000 jobs created. So that's how important they are. And then when they get there, they expand. And Bowling's a good example outside of Charleston. They did a $1.1 billion expansion, doubled their plant size, and doubled their jobs about 4 years after they originally located there. So people were like, Joe, that's nice, but I don't want a big mega project. What about a small project? This is Project Casper with Acme Smoked Fish, and they are not part of the Wile E. Coyote companies. But the initial contact happened in early June, and you can see from the timeline, we were in New York having a negotiating session less than 2 months later. They brought one client in to the room, sent us out, brought us back into the room, sent the other client out, and they worked both clients in both states in the deal to try to get the best deal possible. And they made an announcement a week later. But that was a $27 million project, 120 jobs on a 20-acre site. Went to Pender County, North Carolina, just outside of Wilmington. And that was really tied to an infrastructure issue that Pender County was able to address because they were building a brand new wastewater treatment plant that could support the type of brine or waste that was coming out of that food processing facility. And they do smoked salmon is what they do. So not only are projects moving fast to the announcement phase, what we're seeing is projects are actually getting engineering plans and permits and approvals in place before they actually make an announcement. This is a vitamin shop project, 312,000 square foot distribution center. That's a 33-acre site it went to. Literally, we were moving in the diesels the week before the governor's announcement. We were getting the approvals. And as soon as the governor's announcement was made, they cranked up within 2 hours the diesel bulldozers, put lights up, and ran 24/7 to get this pad graded out in about 3 weeks. And 2.5 months later, then Tilt-Up Construction, they had the walls up. So again, the speed to market, speed of the market really matters. And then 8 months, they were ready to go. So the Virginia Business Ready Sites Program has a tier system which evaluates sites. I'm a little bit proud of this because I developed it in 2012 and the state adopted it in 2015. But there's a logical process for identifying and developing sites that everybody goes through, and it's tied to timelines. But what we're seeing is the market, given the market demands, the market is really looking for what we call a tier 4 site where infrastructure has already been invested. Anything that needs to be constructed simultaneously with that prospect constructing their facility, and it needs to be guaranteed to be constructed. So if you have to acquire an easement or go out and deal with the condemnation issue, or they don't want to bet on, oh yes, we think we can get it done. They're going to bet on, we know we can get it done and we will have a T-Bax date and there's nothing that's going to stop us from delivering that. So that's important to realize. So to give you a little bit of an idea of what Whitney deals with on a regular basis and probably how you'll see a typical deal come in, there are really 3 major components to every economic development deal. That's the building cost, site and infrastructure cost, and the land cost. The day the prospect shows up, they know what the facility is going to cost about to the square foot, dollar per square foot number. The land cost, they don't want price quadrupling overnight if a deal is imminent, but it's the site and infrastructure costs that are soft, squishy stuff in the middle, of which you get stuck having to figure out, and that's where every incentive is usually negotiated around, is how much and who pays, and where do you go get the funding sources, whether it's a deal closing fund from Commonwealth Opportunity, Transportation Partnership Opportunity, or the Tobacco Commission trough funds as well too. So some of the basics on site development and land basics. Important thing is here, not all sites are created equal. We work for a lot of site selectors where we'll come in and we'll analyze when they get down to anywhere 5 or 6 sites, we'll analyze and say, okay, hey, if it's $50,000 an acre property or $100,000 an acre property, what are my costs to develop, and what are my permitting timelines, and what are my permitting risks associated with that? And we'll distill that into a spreadsheet of where you can see really truly what their cost is. This is an example. This was the Aldi project, which went to Petersburg. But we had a $50,000 site per acre site, $100,000 per acre site. And when we went down to the basic, to the bottom, they were all about equivalent on a dollar per acre development. So when we brought the executives of the company in, it was okay, which is your preferred site? And we'll negotiate to get that site moving forward. So that facility actually just went live. The final basics of that deal were 145 jobs, $59 million investment, and roughly $9.2 million incentives, which were the cost of site and infrastructure improvements. So, and in the lower right-hand corner was one of the graphics that we put together initially for Aldi when we were first talking to them about this project. So some things just to keep in mind, and I'll get into the stuff here on the county and the town here pretty quick. When it comes to being competitive in this market, you got to recognize time sometimes is greater than money, okay? Because that gives somebody a competitive advantage. You need to be in a position where you can assess your costs, infrastructure, cost delivery of utilities, whether it's natural gas or electric, and then timelines for approvals are very, very important. So the more due diligence and planning up front, the easier it is to assess these costs and these timelines. Other considerations, and I think this starts dovetailing into why you are in such a good position moving forward. How will your employees spend their days and their weekends? Are there community assets that they can enjoy, and where can they raise a family there? Those are some very important issues. So when I look at who your competition is, the bottom line is your competition is the world. We were competing against Singapore for Rolls-Royce back in 2007, okay? So everybody's coming to this game prepared to win, and then when you look at how the United States is broken out in general, you all are kind of in this little northern southeastern corner of the regions and how they normally break out. And they're being aggressive. I was at the airport when Volvo flew off in Emporia, Virginia, and Virginia was backslapping and high-fiving, saying we just landed the Volvo plant. And about 60 days later, they announced in South Carolina, because as soon as Nikki Haley found out she was eliminated, she put a contingency on a plane, went and met with the Volvo executives, basically opened up the checkbook and said, you know what, we'll give you exactly what you want, just tell us when you want it. And the state of South Carolina will underwrite it. So she helped change the game in economic development in that regard, but everybody is being really, really aggressive. And Virginia is finally getting back to that position where we can be aggressive on that front also. So what are some of the advantages of Abingdon and Washington County? Well, when I look at the 2050 projected markets of America, and this is based upon population trends, you really sit between two major markets from a logistics distribution perspective on I-81. And then you also kind of act as a little pass-through for the Great Lakes markets, okay? And this is important because when a business is trying to grow, they don't want to be thinking locally, they need to be thinking globally. And the Virginia Port Authority has the ability to ship all over the world. They're going to become one of the largest ports on the East Coast when all is said and done. They're projected to almost triple in size over the next 30 to 40 years. And so that's very important to understand. But those decisions are being made by access to markets, workforce, logistics, transportation costs, total cost of ownership, which include energy costs, utility costs, tax rates, capital investment. They're all very sophisticated spreadsheets that they put together when they do this analysis. And so since you guys are at the center of this corridor, you should be able to see a lot of potential opportunity that will be able to service those two markets, in my opinion. So when I look at a regional look of this Abingdon, Washington area, I did a 3-hour drive time radius map, which actually I have right here too, so you can take a closer look. But y'all have some significant regional markets that you can serve. And Whitney and I were chatting about that before the presentation. And she and I did not have this discussion before the presentation either. So when I look at Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, and then you're within 6 states within a 3-hour drive time, and then you're almost in Georgia, so you almost have access to 7 states, and that's something unique that I think needs to be focused on in the future. So when I look at some of the key elements that drive regional economic development success, there are really a couple of things that do drive it, but some of the big three, what we call the big three, are: do you have a college university setting, and you do that with Emory and Henry College? Do you have a government seat? That's town of Abingdon and Washington County have a government seat together, kind of like Farmville and Prince Edward County do. Do you have regional health care? You've got Johnson Memorial Hospital. Do you have workforce training? You've got the community college. Entrepreneurial environment, you've got the Highlands Business Incubator. And do you have a robust transportation network? When I look at all those key ingredients, regardless of what's happened with the coal industry, you have all those ingredients to be very successful as a regional economic development group, and from that perspective. So I took a look at your traffic counts, VDOT traffic counts, and how they compare across the board to each other. So I-81 coming through Abingdon is about 46 to 47,000 vehicles a day. US 11, US 19 is about 24,000. 19 and Alt 58 are 22,000. I'll look at the I-81, I-77, US 11 and 52 corridor. That's about 54 to 56,000. And then I-81 and US 58 around the Bristol, Washington County area are around 60,000 vehicles a day. Successful communities treat their major transportation networks like it's a stream of money driving by every day. And they try to extract as much of it as they can. And I don't think y'all should look at it any differently than what you do. I know Farmville, Prince Edward would love to have an interstate running through their backyard. You have an interstate running through your backyard. There's a significant advantage there that really connects two major markets. And I think you're very good to move forward with that. So one of the other things that is big about regional economic development and economic development in general is branding. That is becoming the new economic development. The article, and I'll send Kathy and Tanya the links to these articles, and you'll have a copy of the presentation as well too electronically. This was a post on Forbes blog about branding's new economic development. So there's another article about how a new generation is reviving small town Texas. Great article. There is this group of young professionals called, they call them the FIRE professionals, which are financially independent and retiring early. And they're retiring, they're living a very modest lifestyle, saving a lot of money, and they're retiring in that 40 to 50 age bracket. Okay, but they're moving to communities where they don't have to buy a $400,000 or $500,000 house. They can buy a $150,000 house, live modestly, and enjoy life, enjoy outdoor amenities, enjoy spending time with their kids, stuff like that. So there's a potential market that is starting to kind of brew up of people who grow up in large urban areas that really want to get out. And I think that's a market that hopefully you guys can capitalize on moving forward. So how does the world view Abingdon, Washington? Whitney just went through a rebranding process with Washington County. So I think that was very successful. Abingdon, has a nice website. So you have all these websites that basically do a good job of selling the community, including the Virginia Business Incubator, Highlands Business Incubator. I think you need to make sure that they're all interconnected, because when you look at the regional aspect of things, people want to see that you're kind of working together, and part of that is being able to go to the website and kind of be able to interconnect between the two and understand how this symbiotic relationship between Washington County and the town of Abingdon works, because reality is town of Abingdon is Washington County because tax base is generated out of that town. So what about Abingdon and Washington County as your brand? From my observation, you're really a vibrant outdoor community with a lot of culture and personality. Okay, you're very unique. From the Barter Theater and the Martha Washington Hotel, music jam at the Abingdon Community Center. I mean, Tanya was telling me people will literally drive in from Winston-Salem, over 2 hours away, have dinner, go to a concert, drive back home that night.
That's actually not at the community center, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's Thursday Jams.
Thursday Jams. Okay, my apology. I'm sorry.
Farmers Market.
Okay, I double checked the website on that, so I apologize about that. So anyway, the Virginia Creeper Trail, you know, that's very similar to the Virginia High Bridge Trail through Farmville and Prince Edward. The Yeti Trail run, that's going on this weekend. One of my colleagues in Virginia Beach, he actually was a 82nd Airborne guy. He tried to get into the 50-mile section of it, and he said they had sold out on it, so he couldn't even get into it. I told him, Tanya, I would talk to you and see if you could work some magic to get him in. The howling at the Wolf Hills Brewing, the Appalachian Trail in Damascus. I mean, we went to Damascus, and I thought that was like one of the coolest places on the face of the earth. And the people I know who love to go do outdoor stuff, you know, that is just a phenomenal place just to go hang out. Your farmers market, your Crooked Road Music Trail, y'all have a lot of really cool things to do from a culture and an outdoor activity perspective. So one of the things that always comes up is workforce. And where do you get your workforce? When a company looks at a region, what are they looking for? They're looking for existing workforce skills. They're also looking for population that they could potentially retrain. And I just turned 50 years old. I hate to say it, I'm getting to the point where I can't be retrained. Okay? But companies don't want to be retraining 50-plus-year-old people. They want to be retraining people who are maybe in their early 40s, people who can have a 15 to 20-year productive work life for that. And that's just the reality of how those decisions are made, and that's when they look at it like that. Millennials, they need a cool place to live. It was interesting, we were doing the Visita study and doing a presentation, and I had 2 young millennials with me, and I got done doing my portion of the presentation, and the whole Visita board looked at these 2 young millennials, one was a UVA grad and one was a Virginia Tech grad, and said, okay, what do you want? What do you want to see to move out here to our community? And it was kind of a watershed moment for me. I was like, you know, that's right. What do the millennials want? And so they want a cool place to live. They want outdoor activity. They want internet accessibility. And they also want to be able to kind of control their time. They aren't going to commit to corporate America. We were having a discussion with one of the millennials who worked with us the other day as we were going to a meeting. And she made the comment, she goes, you know, we grew up essentially in the 2008 crisis, and we saw our parents get laid off, or we saw bad things happen to our friends' parents. We don't want to become too dependent on a company. And I think that was a formative moment for them because they lived through 9/11, then they lived through that recession, and so that kind of helped formulate their approach to life in general of not being too dependent upon somebody else, but being more dependent upon them and a quality of life aspect that doesn't seem to, you know, quality of life that really seems to matter to them. And then can you move workforce in? In other words, do you have a good community to move to? Excuse me. We were showing Vitamin Shop around in the site selection process. We went to visit 9 sites in 2 days. And one of the phenomena that happened I thought was really cool was we were in Ashland, Virginia, and we were at the Iron Horse restaurant, and it was at the crossing of 2 bike trails in central Virginia. And all of a sudden, you could just see like the eyes light up of the executives from Vitamin Shop. There was this cultural fit with their company to what Ashland had. And that became very obvious because we all met after the 2 days. You meet after the 2 days to kind of download everything while everything's fresh in their mind. And they walked into a closed door meeting and said, you know, that's where I want to be. Whatever you do, make sure we end up there. Okay? But they said also keep another state in the mix and keep 3 sites in the mix in Virginia because we want to negotiate the best deal possible. And if we can't get the deal that we feel comfortable with, we will look elsewhere, but that's where we want to be. And you know what? That's where they ended up. So, but it was kind of a cool moment to be in the room when that happened. So, you know, you can't talk about the positive without talking about the potential negative that you have to deal with. Rural America is in a declining population, and you're in no exception here in Abingdon, Washington, okay? Now, while the 2020 census hasn't come out, the projected census data for 2016 shows a modest decline of about 1.2 to 1.3%. Obviously, with the coal industry declining, people will have to look for jobs elsewhere. I think some of the things that are hurting you is your distance from Richmond, Virginia, the state capital, because you don't really get as much attention as everybody else around the state capital does. And really, one of the things I think that is lacking is a true multi-locality regional economic development group. It's interesting because right now I know there's a conversation going on about how to work cross-state for sites and or communities that are border state or borders on the state boundary. Because when a company makes a decision to move, they don't care where that state line is. They want to know they can draw their workforce in. A company can move to Charleston and draw a workforce in from Savannah, Georgia. A company can move to Charlotte, draw a workforce in from Rock Hill, South Carolina. So they look at those areas where they draw. And when I look at your 3-hour radius and where your draw pool is, which really is about a 45-minute drive, you touch a number of different locations in 3 states within that 45-minute drive that you need to pay attention to. So I think if there's a place where y'all can do a true multi-state regional economic development group model, this is it, if that's something you guys are interested in pursuing. A couple things I want to talk about from a practical planning perspective. With this phenomenon of small towns that are struggling or declining, most small towns have 2 choices. They can either grow or they can die. We were working with the community not too long ago, and the board member who was he had retired, he was in his mid-60s, he was like, well, my constituency doesn't want XYZ because that means, it's not what they had before and things have changed and the younger generation just isn't going to move there with that. And we point blank said, listen, you have to accept the fact that if you don't make it conducive for the millennials and the younger generation to come in town, you very well could die a slow death as a community. And I think the light bulb went off with that elected official, and we basically said, you have to understand, you're going to have to explain to your constituency that this is part of the reality of the economic reality of what you're dealing with moving forward. So you've got to learn how to embrace it and make it satisfactory, because the last thing you want to do is see declining revenues as a locality, aging population, and you're not backfilling with that younger generation. That's very, very important to move forward with. The small towns can be those hubs of regional activities like I referred to earlier, and the seeds of growth within a community. And you are competing with the world for economic development prospects, so cultural centers do matter. When it comes to comprehensive plans, and I know there's a lot of battles that go back and forth about comprehensive plans and zoning and all that good stuff, you got to keep in mind when those are done, those are a snapshot in time. It's like a financial statement for a company, okay? It's indicative of what you see at that point in time. Things change over time, and you need to build flexibility in those plans such that you can make smart decisions. If you aren't careful, they can constrict growth, but you want them to be able to incentivize and accelerate growth in a manner that is consistent with how you want to see your locality grow. So it's just always something to keep in mind. There's no silver bullet about doing a comprehensive plan, but there can be a silver bullet to kill the growth if you aren't careful, if you do make it too restrictive. The other thing I want to talk about is the importance of business incubators, okay? They're great for entrepreneurial ventures, and they're good think tanks. The existing office space can be filled by former incubator businesses. That seems to be consistent. I know y'all have some space that's been available when the hospital left and when Alpha Natural Resources shut down. But they can help lead to revitalization of communities. So the American Underground in Durham, North Carolina is a phenomenal think tank. Durham, North Carolina, 15, 16 years ago was about 2% occupancy, 98% vacancy in their tobacco warehouses downtown. Okay, the incubator concept, along with Duke University, helped redevelop downtown Durham to be one of the coolest places in the country to live. Okay, so they went from, in about 15, 16 years, they went from 2% occupancy, 98% vacancy, to 98% occupancy and 2% vacancy. And the incubator has a lot to do with filling those spaces up for the company, for the American tobacco region. So, but when you look at the incubators across Virginia, there are 20, I think there are 28 of them total. And you're in a nice little corner of the state where you don't have a tremendous amount of competition, but they are very important. I know you all have the Washington County Business Challenge. It sounds like that has just been a phenomenal success. So you're kind of growing from within, which is a very positive thing. Roughly 48% of participants have started or grown their own business in the past 5 years. Y'all have had about 92 participants. The winners have been very successful, at least the ones that we went and visited. Damascus Diner was on top of their game. That was phenomenal. So, y'all have a lot of positive things going on that you can continue to build on. Again, if the winners didn't win, it looks like a number of them went on to be successful and implement their business plan. So I think the good thing about a program like that is it forces people to think about their business and to move forward. And the reality is there are stark realities to being successful in business as there are stark realities to being successful in the community. And you really have to follow the Stockdale paradox. When he was a prisoner of war, he said you have to look at the reality of your situation, embrace it, and move forward and set your expectations appropriately. I remember my mom used to say the root of all disappointment is expectations. Please set your expectations appropriately. So one little statement I want to make in general, and this is an observation across Virginia and the Southeast, is when you're working together as a region, okay, if localities or regions really want to work together, you're going to find out that there are usually 2 or 3 ways to figure out how you can work together. If you don't want to work together, there are about 100+ ways to figure out how not to work together, okay? So the reality is, if you want to work together and you have the leadership to make it happen, you need to accept that there are 2 or 3 different ways to do it. If you want to kill it, there are 100 different ways to go out and kill it. And are you going to have the leadership that's basically going to say, okay, the people who are trying to kill it, listen, if you don't want it, you don't want it, but we're going to move forward with it anyway because this is what's in the best interest of the community. So some of the initiatives across the state that I think would be helpful for you all to be aware of. There's a back office pilot initiative going on by the Virginia Tobacco Commission right now. Lawrenceville, South Hill, and Chase City are kind of going to be their test cases. I think that's eventually going to distribute itself across Virginia and their region. We're in the process of doing a data center site certification with Mid-Atlantic Broadband. Go Virginia, you're seeing a lot of regional workforce collaboration come out of that, and then the Virginia Business Ready Sites program. So I'm down to my last couple of slides, and then we'll open up to questions and discussion. But from what I see, communities that are successful in economic development really are proactive and intentional about it. They understand it's a long-term game, not an election cycle buzzword. They really think regionally first, locally second, have a comprehensive economic development strategy, and they execute on that plan every day. Greatest plans out there are great, but if you don't execute, you don't succeed. It's like every 32 NFL teams want to win Super Bowl each year. Which one wins? The one who can execute with a little bit of luck along the way. You need to understand your assets, your sites, your cost revenue generators, remove political hurdles or risk for prospects where you can. And plain and simple, these communities really get it. I don't have to sit here and argue with you and explain to you why you need to be successful in economic development. You get it and you embrace it. So to close things out here, some summary and some key takeaways. You have some great assets to work with, including the big 3, and that's a college, government seats, and regional health care. You have a niche in kind of that ecotourism, outdoor tourism, that I think needs to be further exploited. I think Abingdon serves as a cultural hub with a great 3-hour draw, and you have to recognize that as an asset for your community and embrace that and move forward with it. Rural America in these towns are naturally shrinking. It is something that you need to recognize, and it's going to be, and it takes a village to be successful, and everybody needs to be able to embrace that and understand that a symbiotic relationship is necessary in order for your region to continue to grow. Workforce and ready-to-go sites are the primary drivers in economic development success. You need to have that cultural place where millennials want to move. You need to think regionally and look at forming a multi-state regional economic development group. I think personally, look at branding Abingdon maybe as a mini Asheville of sorts. When you ask people about Asheville, they know what Asheville is. So when you ask people about Abingdon, they know a couple of different things about Abingdon, but it's based upon what their pure interests are. So can you rebrand as a mini Asheville of sorts? Slow and steady wins a race. Okay, you aren't going to go out and do something tomorrow that's going to drive you to great success. You're going to understand it's going to take one step at a time. Like the guys are going to be running, guys and girls are going to be running that 100-mile Yeti race. 30-hour cutoff time on top of that. It's a long haul, and then you need to think outside the box. So I did have to put my plug for Farmville in here as to why I think y'all need to go visit. Very similar to dynamics to the area, similar outdoor recreational opportunities, High Bridge Trail State Park, along with Small Business Development Center is kind of their incubator. Hampton City College, which competes against Emory and Henry in football and baseball and everything else, and Longwood University, 2 government seats, and Central Healthcare System. So with that, I'm at the close of my presentation. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, and I love Vince Lombardi. The will to win is not so important as the will to prepare to win. And you need to have the will to prepare to win and work together. So at this point in time, I'd like to open up any questions and say, what can we do to help? Thank you for your time.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, Joe.
Yes.
I enjoyed the conversation a month or so ago, and something the county's doing, if you don't know about it, and the board, I think, has embraced it, and they can speak better than I can, I won't speak for them, but we see our region, and Whitney's done good data pulls for us. Our region really is from Washington County to Northeast Tennessee. People that commute, they may live in Sullivan County, but they work in Washington County, or they live here and work there, right, for example. That was it 17, 16%
Yeah, we have
split?
about a 17 and 19.
Yeah,
on
it's
the
almost an
Stevens
even split.
interchange.
Okay.
So the data's shown us that the chairman is reaching out to leaders in the Tennessee market. And we know Will Moorfield, one of the delegates in our region, would like to do something across state lines.
Yeah.
And all that's positive, and I think we're embraced as a county, but the negative we've seen is Go Virginia's not worked the way I think the state wants it to. So I think what we're seeing, and I think, you know, others in the room can help us with this, I think, is the reason I'm saying all this is, we need to build our own market, our own regional market. And what Richmond thinks it is not really what it is for us, is what we're finding. So I say that to say, we're kind of following what you're saying to an extent. We're talking about it. We've not executed completely, but there's a lot of merit to what you said, because I think that's what's going to drive success for Washington County anyway. And I don't want to speak for Abingdon, but Abingdon as well, if we embrace the larger region.
Sure.
But Richmond doesn't want to see, and one of the elected officials in the county, and none of my bosses, but one of the constitutional offices has told me, well, Richmond doesn't want to see money going to Tennessee. Well, I get it, but at the end of the day, most business people don't care about state borders or county borders. So at the end of the day, if, let's say we partner with Johnson City, Tennessee, okay, that's great, but at the end of the day, if they benefit and we benefit, then that business benefits and our people have jobs. Who cares, right?
I agree, absolutely.
But that's a hard sell, so anyway.
Yeah, I spent some time with Will last week at the Virginia Stack Commission meeting, and he and I talked about that concept quite a bit. And it's my understanding that there are some discussions right now going on between the Secretary of Commerce in Virginia and in North Carolina to talk about, explore ways that we can do cross-border workforce regional approaches. Because when you look at a lot of the Virginia mega sites that Tobacco Commission has funded, they're along the North Carolina border, and when you look at a number of the North Carolina sites, they're close to the Virginia border. And the reality is if Toyota had come to Greensboro, North Carolina, they wanted all their supplier parks within 2 hours, and that drew in quite a bit of Virginia within that 2-hour radius. So that would have had a very positive impact on the area. So, so I think if there's a time politically where a multi-state regional economic development approach can take off, this is the time.
I just will say, put a plug, Will Moorfield will be here next Wednesday at noon. He's gonna be doing our noon knowledge, and he's gonna be focusing on that Virginia tax exemption bill that he was the patron of, but he's also gonna be open for discussion, so we'll be right here next Wednesday at noon.
Wednesday at noon. And today, he was talking to us about, he's working with West Virginia on a project also. David, did you get the gist of?
Yeah, he was talking about, for those at the May tobacco meeting, the $5 million investment.
But what was the West Virginia? He's working with West Virginia on.
I missed West Virginia. I'm still hung up on the $5 million investment.
He's doing some kind of regional project with West Virginia.
He is, Kathy, but to be totally transparent, I didn't pay attention.
Okay, well, anyway, I guess the takeaway from that is they are working with some border states.
Sure.
And he will be here next Wednesday to talk about some of that, if people are interested.
I think, Joe, something important to remember too about particularly Washington County, Abingdon, even going into the Tri-Cities metro region, is our target industries are gonna look a bit different than what you're traditionally seeing in Virginia West, for lack of a better term. I think we have a lot more strengths, for example, in advanced materials. We look a little bit more like Southside
Sure.
Virginia in that respect, but at the same time, some of our target industries, they definitely do take more of a Tennessee flair as opposed to Virginia's traditional manufacturing flair.
Sure.
That being said, I think we have flexibility, we can play both. We just have to position ourselves. It's like you said, data. We have to understand the drivers for a particular inquiry on how we choose to position.
Sure.
But for a generic kind of across the board marketing piece, that's something that we do have a bit of unique kind of feature that you don't even see when you go east of Smith, east of Atkins in Smith County, or when you cross into Russell County. We're kind of very much an island in that respect, which is sometimes a challenge when you look at Western Virginia regionalism when it's just used as a Western Virginia model.
Yeah.
So we see it, I think, sometimes as challenges in Western Virginia oriented types of conversations for regionalism.
Yeah, when we did the CETA site selection study, they asked us to look at assets in Kentucky and Tennessee and how they could potentially help with where we locate a site, which was very important to the CETA region. So,
Yeah.
but
They
you know,
look more that way.
yeah, no, you're right, you're right. And I think what it all kind of boils down to, and Will's done a great job, for being one of the youngest legislators, I guess, since Thomas Jefferson. He has done a great job of trying to usher this along, and I think it's going to take true leadership to be able to pull this off. And I think if there is a region or community that can do it, I believe you all are that region and community that can really pull it off, because you have the most upside positive impact from being able to pull together a multi-state regional economic development approach and group. And as far as I'm concerned, go out there with a sledgehammer and try to break the mold.
I appreciate your comment about the relationship to what is there to do on nights and weekends. I've recently heard the former director of tourism for the state of Michigan, and their campaign is Pure Michigan.
Yeah.
And they used to have a parallel economic development brand. And what they decided is they were both trying to say the same thing, so why not consolidate both of those efforts? So it turned into Pure Michigan for both the economic development and the tourism. And what I thought was a particularly nice victory is that the Ford 150 truck, which is, I think, the #1 selling vehicle in the United States forever and ever, they put out a steering wheel that is sold in Michigan that says Pure Michigan embroidered on the steering wheel. So they really invested in the power of that shared message that says the quality of life is here. That's
great. So y'all go for a brand like Pure Appalachia or something like that.
Or Appalachian.
Or Appalachian. Well, and that does bring up a good point. I mean, do you brand around the Appalachian Trail? I mean, that's another thing to consider. I was in. We're doing a SEDS process for this Commonwealth Regional Council, which is Southern Central Virginia. And one of the things that came up this morning was, if you do an hour radius around the center of that community, you bring in an awful lot of culture and an awful lot of assets and amenities. And you can't get those if you live in Richmond, purely get those if you live in Richmond, purely get those if you live in Charlottesville, purely get those if you live in Lynchburg. But if you live in Farmville, you can get all those within an hour radius. And so they have basically said, hey, kind of in the middle of nowhere, but at the center of everything, or we're an hour away from everything that you would need. So I think that has some legitimacy to it, and I think a very similar approach could be taken here when you look at where you can be within an hour, including several states, that's something unique that no other community has probably in the country. I doubt you have any other community that's got 6, almost 7 states within a 3 to 3.5 hour drive.
And within a day's drive of almost half the US population.
Expanded the
Yeah.
yard. 8 hour drive for trucks.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes back to, I'll go back a couple slides and talk about the 2050 stuff. We'll put that back up here. There we go. Yeah, again, when you look at access to where markets, population markets are going to be, the consistent thread between the Northeast and the Charlotte Atlanta corridor is I-81. I-81, 77.
I know, now all we have to do is get I-81 upgraded enough that we won't get killed on it.
They're saying the same thing about 460 in southeastern Virginia too, so.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else have any questions, comments?
Well, thank you all for your time tonight. Hopefully it was enlightening information. I have left some business cards up here, and both Tanya and Kathy know how to get in touch with me, but if anybody wants to reach out to me, ask me any other questions about what we did for you all and what we do for any other clients, I'll be more than glad to talk to you. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to take a nice peek behind the curtain and see all the cool things that are going on down here. And to me, I'm looking forward to seeing where you guys will be in 10, 15, 20 years. So I really think you have an opportunity to make some great strides and do some really cool things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, everybody, take a to-go plate home.